And thank you for being here. I will call the June 3rd, 2021 special meeting of the Bastrop Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Would you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Debbie Moore?
Yes, here.
Cynthia Meyer? Here. Matt Lassen?
Here.
Cheryl Lee?
Present.
Ishmael Harris?
Here.
Pablo Serna? And Greg, Sherry, and Carrie Kaler won't be with us.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Item 2, citizen comments. This is a time when anyone who wants to speak on something other than an agenda item will have 3 minutes to address the commission. We do have one person, Chaplain Dale Burke, who has asked to speak under citizens' comments. So, Chaplain Dale, are you here? I don't see his pretty white head of hair, so we're going to move on down the road. We'll go to item 3, items for individual consideration. Item 3A, public hearing and consider action to recommend approval of the Bastrop 552 Development Agreement Concept Plan for Bastrop 552 LLP for 546.364 plus or minus acres of land out of the A2 Stephen F. Austin to the west of Lovers Lane, located within the City of Bastrop extraterritorial jurisdiction. So Mr. Job will explain to us what's going on.
Yes, thank you for having me tonight, Commissioners. Wow, we've got a pretty good crowd. I'm making a little nervous, little stage fright here, but let me see what I can do. This is going to be a mixed-use development that is, as you talked about, the 546 acres approximately. That's 220 acres of recreation, 135 acres of studio, 40 acres of accommodations, which will be multiple types of accommodations, kind of an Airbnb type of issues, some trailers that they may stay in, some yurts, things of that nature. And then recreation studio hybrid is another 151 acres, and we'll get into a little more of that as we go through the presentation, but just feel free to stop me if you have any questions as we go through. Again, this property, this is the concept plan that we're going to be talking about tonight. You can see that it's bordered by the Colorado River, and it currently, let me see if I can highlight this, if I can work this out. This is what we're talking about, the recreation, the hybrid, the studio uses, so on and so forth, the accommodations, and if you'll, I'm sure everybody's familiar with the property since so many people are here. It's there at the end of Lovers Lane. Let's keep moving. What you see here is, excuse me one second. Is the land uses that actually go with the overall use of the property, and they all fit into that recreation, the hybrid, and I'm not sure you can see this, but I know that you have it in your pack. Let me see if I can magnify some of this. Well, let's try that one more time. Right, so we're talking about accessory buildings, flex space, heavy machinery cells, parking lot structures, things of that nature, light equipment that are allowed in that studio use. So anything that you would need related to filming a movie, rental for generators, things of that nature, lighting, light plants, stuff like that, right? Same thing here, the housing. If you can see again, I think I've blown this up enough. There's gonna be a caretaker and guard shack. See if I can get that again. Some more accessory dwellings. And when they say multifamily and patio homes, most likely that kind of stuff is going to be a set, right? So it won't necessarily be a place that people live. They may stay there during filmings or things of that nature, but we're talking about a lot of this actually being part of the sets that are there. We'll get to that as we go through the next plan. What I do have highlighted here, which we're continuing to work on, and I'm sure is a concern for tonight, and that's how they handle the interior lighting. Right, and what we've asked them to do is what it says there, if I can blow that up one more time. Sorry, my clicker's not working great here. It basically says it's not applicable to anything that's outside that can be seen from the public right away. What we're going to do is try to tighten that language down just a little bit to meet our lighting standards, which is 10,000 lumens per acre, sorry, 100,000 lumens per acre, and make sure that by the time the light gets to the edge of the property that it's 0 candle feet, so it's gone. This is the uses that we were talking about. You can see the first phase here will actually be I'm telling you, I think it's not working. Well, as you can see on the top right-hand corner, that's actually the studios. And what they have here is sound stages, right? They're just as concerned about the noise in the area as I'm sure the neighborhoods, adjacent neighborhoods are. This is why they want to build these 6 sound stages, and what they happen in there is where they do the filming. It's quiet, it's controlled, and that's the first phase of where they're going to start. And then you can see over here they have some golf courses. In this area here, there's actually some sets that are old Western towns, something maybe like the Middle East. You may see a Wisteria Lane, things of that nature, all related to the film industry. And just to point out something, I know that we have on the agenda, this is for Bastrop 552. That's also in our line 204 studios. So when you see that going back and forth, they're actually the same folks, 2 separate companies, but all the same team. Why we like this site? Well, this site already has limited connectivity, as you're familiar with. There's a big portion of it that can't be developed because it's in the 100-year floodplain. There's a large part of it in the 500-year. And what we think is good about this one large user is while it's a larger user and has a higher intensity use, it'll actually have less of an impact on the overall traffic in the neighborhood. This was originally, in our original plan, land planning here, was low-density residential, which would actually be for about 1,200 homes. So if you can imagine 1,200 homes, families, kids, everybody has 3 cars, 2 or 3 cars, there's 9 trips a day per house. We think this will be less of an impact actually on the overall neighborhood. So that's what we considered when we looked at this location, while we thought it may be a good fit.
And could it be, one of the reasons for that is that I was film commissioner here a number of years, once the commission first started, and you don't film 365 days a year. You may have back-to-back projects, and then you might go 6-8 months with nothing.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's-
That'll apply here?
And that's another, this will actually have less impact on our police resources, things of that nature, but it will have a higher yield as far as property taxes. It's going to be annexed into the city, which means it'll generate sales tax as well. So it actually is going to be a low resource pool on the actual city, but it'd be more beneficial that way. And you're right, filming's not year-round all the time. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, the amount of employees they were thinking, but in this first phase, I want to say it was 20 to 50. So if you can imagine 50 cars driving to work every day or whenever it's time to go to work versus 1,200 different vehicles and 1,200 different homes, we do think it'll be less of an impact. Some of the outstanding issues that we haven't quite worked through, and we've looked at some new red line revision versions, which is not in your packet, but it is in the new council packet that went out today. We're still working on those outdoor lighting standards, which we spoke about today, and they said it were revised and but just could not have it ready for this meeting. And then there's a couple of sentences that I still want to talk to the attorney about. He doesn't know yet on the timing and construction of the perimeter road. So, but I think we're really, really close. And the reason this is an outstanding issue for us, and I think it is for everybody, is it's important that that perimeter road is built. If you can look at what we have here, this is what our current master transportation plan map looks like. So look at all of those roads that would have gone through this property. And you've got that big blue road, which is actually a 80-foot multimodal thoroughfare plan that would have been a bridge over the Colorado River. They asked to remove that, and what you're looking at now is something more like this, right? So we're talking about one user. We still have the blue lane. We still have a potential to have people get across the river at a later date when a bridge is built. But what we're doing is lessening the impact, again, of all of these homes that would have been pulling out onto this right-of-way. So
Okay, so we're talking about a new road being built.
we're talking about a brand
So
new.
would you show us where Lover's Lane is now and where the perimeter road would be?
Okay. Let me just back this up. I'm going to get there. Hold on. Here we go. Let's look at this one. It's a little better. So, see if I can get the pointer to work. All right. So currently Lover's Lane is here, right? It jogs, comes down this way, and ties in to, I believe, Riverside right there at the end. What we're looking at is a perimeter road. This, as part of this development agreement, you'll actually see the dedication of additional right-of-way here and a perimeter road that gets built as they move to the site planning process at a later date as they do multiple phases. There's an option in there to either put up the monetary obligation to build the road, we're talking about a rural cross-section here, or to have the road built. That's determined at the time of site planning. And we would like access to be taken off of that road. So what we're trying to prevent is high volume of traffic, even though it only happens, I know it's not 365 days a year, but there is going to be a time when there's going to be a peak impact flow. And we just want to make sure they do not impact those residential neighbors in the streets that are there. So we'd like access to be taken off of that perimeter road. And we'd also like the residents to be able to take access off that perimeter road if they want another way out later on. If Lover's Lane happens to be closed for some reason, you could get out that way and reach the north end of it. So, and you'll also notice in the red line here, which I think is important, that's a perimeter fence. They're also interested in a perimeter fence. They're also interested in privacy. And that's also going to be a bit of a noise buffer, right? So there's going to be on a 4-foot berm, and the fence is allowed to be 10 foot tall. So that's a 14-foot tall fence separating that from the current neighborhood.
Do we know what kind of fence? Would it be constructed of yet?
It's a little early for that, but I'm sure would be some type of masonry, if I had to guess. CMU, something. Let me see if I can get to something else. Talk about the grid. For our public responses tonight, we actually had one in favor. This is at the time, this is the latest today. There's clearly more people here that may not be in favor, but what we got back responses were 9 opposed, 3 requested more information, and actually 1 in favor of. So with that, I'll take any questions about the presentation, and if you like, I'll turn it over to the developers, which actually have a couple presentations they'd like to provide you and let you know a little more about their operations.
Okay, and after the after the developer make presentation, then I will open the public hearing, and those who wish to speak will be allowed to. But we wanted the developer to speak first so that we'd have a better understanding of their side of the issues. Okay,
Yeah.
so, does anybody have any questions?
So are you saying that the proposed road will not go through the neighborhood? Is that what it?
What we're asking for is a perimeter road along the edge of the property, right? You see that dark line there, right, in the
Right.
red fence? And yes, I would say that you could connect those neighborhood roads to that perimeter street at a later date. If not, you would actually have a gap of unbuilt right-of-way if it weren't built. So there would still be a 80-foot buffer between if the road wasn't built, there would still be an 80-foot buffer between the connection of the residential street and the actual gate or the wall.
Cheryl?
Just a quick question. When did the notification go out? And so I'm trying to find out when was the date of you got the 1 in favor of and the 9 opposed.
It went on the 25th? Does that sound right? 12 days before this meeting is when it was required to go out. So it actually went out 10 days was the requirement. It went out 12 days before, and they've been kind of trickling it in all day. So to get your answer, people have been responding up until tonight.
We welcome Pablo Serna.
No,
It's okay.
you're good.
It's okay. So if there are no other questions, we'll invite our developer, whoever wants to speak first, to make their presentation. Please identify yourself with your name and your affiliation, please, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Bill McLean, on behalf of the applicant. I am a land use attorney from Austin. And as Trey said, we're going to have 2 speakers tonight, but we have our team available for questions. Myself and Alton Butler, the owner of Line 204 Studios. And I want to also thank staff for the work that's been put into the development agreement to this point. They've worked hard. They've looked out for your interests. They haven't made this an easy process on us at all, but they have worked hard and they've been responsive. And together, I think we've collaborated to create a development agreement that is beneficial to the city. I think it's an improvement over what the project could be if it remained in the ETJ. And I think it's an improvement over what the prior developer was looking at with just another 1,200 lot subdivision. I do a lot of development agreements with a lot of Central Texas municipalities. This is my first time to be in front of y'all on a project, but I can tell you that it's, for me, a lot of times, it's the same thing over and over again when we do these projects and we do development agreements. We want a subdivision here, we want a shopping center here, maybe mix in a school, and we want a municipal utility district so we can recoup all our costs. And I'm going to tell you that this project is nothing like that. And it's a pleasure to have been involved in it. Trey did a good job going through the development agreement, and so I'm not gonna belabor that. The main thing I want to focus on is for everyone not to be lost on everyone. Currently, the property is in the ETJ, so you have a lot of freedom in the ETJ. You have less city regulation in the ETJ. We're coming forward to you and agreeing to subject ourselves to full city regulation. We're agreeing to full city taxation. And that's because we want to be a good citizen within this city. We want to collaborate, we want to cooperate with this city. We don't want to just do another ETJ project and disregard the rest of your code book that applies in the city. And I think Alton can explain a lot more about the studios and what will go on this property. But one thing I want to point out that I think is very important is that with the size of the property, 546 acres, and with the natural features that it has, this is a one of a kind facility. It's not going to be like any studio that exists in California. It's not going to be like any studio that exists in Texas. It allows you to spread out. It allows you to be mindful of what's around you. It allows you to where there are outdoor activities, to put them in places that, because of the terrain, because of the natural features on the property, have low impact on the surrounding properties. Traffic, we have our consultants here tonight. We can talk about traffic as well. I want to point out that the closest building to any home for this project as planned is more than half a football field away from the closest home. Also, within those buildings, there is no outdoor activity. Everything happens inside. There's no noise. There are no intrusions that are caused that would be disruptive to a residential environment. I don't want to run out of time before I talk about Alton, but I cannot tell you what a pleasure it's been to meet this man, to learn about his history, to work with him. He is a very, very successful man who has made a career out of nothing when he started. I'm going to tell you that his enthusiasm and his commitment to doing a good project in your community is 100% genuine. And again, as part of that effort, he has assembled a good team of people. We have Brendan McAtee with CBD Engineering here tonight. We have Aaron Welch with Land Strategies. We have Mark Rose, who's helped us on this project as well, with community, helping us with a voice from the community, an influential voice, who's guided us through this process. And they're all available here tonight for questions. So for now, I'm going to sit down and let Alton speak, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions y'all have. Thank you.
Thank you. Please identify yourself and who you're with, please.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Alton Butler. I'm with Line 204, and I'd first like to thank you, Chair, for making this special appearance, and the commissioners and the staff, the city staff, for going through a rigorous process. My name is Alton Butler. I'm originally from Madison, Alabama. I moved to Los Angeles in 1993, washed up football player and got my theater degree and started a business and out of my garage for $1,500, and it grew into the business that it is today. I'm 100% owner. Somebody said I'm a developer. I'm not a developer. I'm a developer of owner-user. That's all I've ever done is owner-user. I moved to LA in 1993, and I've been there ever since. I got a wife of 21 years and 2 kids, 17 and 15. About 4 years ago, I came to Austin and fell in love with Austin. Bought a house on Lago Vista on the lake. Growing up very poor, I never had anything, so you develop a hunger for things you don't have, and you can't teach your kids to be hungry unless they're actually hungry. Every project that I've done, my studios in Hollywood, we've abutted neighbors, never had a complaint. I can completely understand everybody behind me. I've been in these meetings to where I'm the biggest villain ever, and I promise you, once it's all said and done, you'll see that's not the case. I've always wanted to be the man that my kids could look at and be proud of, that that's their father, that he went the right way. That's enough about me. There was a little bit of a slideshow. I think that's where I started the garage in 1997. We got our first building in Hollywood in 2002. Then in 2003, we just happened to be right across the street from a place called Hollywood National Studios, and the guy that owned it, Dick Sheehan, was about 70, and he'd come over one day, and I'd already gave him equipment over the years, and he said, I said, hey, listen, if you ever want to sell, let me know. And he goes, well, I'm done. And I was like, perfect, I'll buy it. I couldn't even afford to buy it then, but I had great clients and great people behind me, so we leased it, and then we ended up buying that property. That's where the Gong Show was shot for 5 years of its entire run. My old office is Chuck Barris's office, and that's where Jeopardy started. We put millions of dollars into the building, and Line 204 kind of got a following because it was, everybody roots for the underdog kind of thing, and it was a country boy from Alabama taking on all the big guys, and I had a lot of support, and it's put me where I am today between good employees and great clients. And the client base ranges all the way from Hulu to Disney to Showtime, ABC, NBC. We do every promo. All those kind of things are in our stages today. 2011, we started a different business, a division of Line 204, which is props, decor. Everything falls under the same umbrella. This is just decor that goes in front of the cameras that you see anytime someone's shooting something. 2014, we expanded again into another building, and we just kept expanding. Our rental company ended up, we were doing 3 out of 4 commercials on TV. We were doing all the stuff behind the camera, tables, cooler chairs, as I say, the dumb stuff. You get technical, and that's where you get an Alabama boy that don't know what he's doing. Trucks, we rent trucks. We just started in 2018 to do an LED wall technology that is with, we partnered with Epic Games, those guys, and they have Fortnite is their group, that's their thing. And so they have a technology software called Unreal Technology, Unreal Engine, and it's basically bringing locations to you instead of traveling. So they go out, they shoot the location, whether it's driving up PCH or Big Ben in London, and we can upload those plates to screens and manipulate that, kind of like in the Fortnite game. We just built 3 more new studios inside our facility, and those are finished next week. 2020, it took me 6 years of my life to buy a zone. I bought a agricultural piece of land in the middle of Burbank, which is the only piece of land that was left in Los Angeles. And Eric Garcetti was a big advocate. The city council was a big advocate because it was a good project. It took 6 years to do it. We just partnered with Blackstone and Hudson Pacific, and because it morphed into a $140 million project, and I don't have that kind of money, so I need partners. And I also see my family being in Austin for the future, and I'm 52 years old, so I don't want to have all my roots in LA.
I hate to interrupt you. We have a 5-minute limit for you guys right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Give us a thumbnail sketch about what you see at the project you want to build in Bastrop, Texas. What's going to be there?
Sound stages. Basically, the whole concept I come up with was film, play, stay. When I talked to Netflix, Hulu, and some other members that we deal with, it's hard. You have to build a self-contained studio lot because the infrastructure is so robust in Atlanta, so robust in Los Angeles. You need an elephant tomorrow morning, and I could get an elephant tomorrow morning. I mean, that's the honest God's truth. So lights, cameras, all that stuff has to be on site. We're also trying to create the vignettes that you shoot on in that, whether it's an old motel, just like a backlot at Universal Studios when you take the tram. Same concept, outside, just like that is.
Don't go far. I'm sure we'll be calling you up to answer some questions, but thank you.
I would hope so. Thank you.
Sure. Trey, one thing that we didn't really talk about was the significance of them requesting to be annexed into the city and what they would be able to do in the ETJ and what they're going to have to do when being part of the city.
Sure. I'll even elaborate on what I think Bill was talking about earlier. They could do this in the ETJ without any help from the city. What they need from us is water and wastewater, right? And they're in our wastewater and water CCN. In order to get the water and wastewater from us, we thought it was beneficial to make sure that everybody's being a good neighbor to enter a development agreement. And that's the choice that they made, is because they said, yeah, we absolutely want to be a good neighbor. And how we do that is go into a development agreement and establish regulations. Like I talked about, there's the 14-foot wall. We're going to look at the way that light spreads out across the place. We want to make sure that if there is going to be something loud that's happening, we need to be notified and want the fire department to know about it, right? All of that kind of life safety stuff that doesn't apply in the ETJ necessarily does apply now, and that was the whole point.
Okay, I want to make sure everybody understood that. Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing. At this time, I will open the public hearing. And anyone who has not signed up to speak, I'm sorry, the time has passed, but we do have some people wanting to speak on 3A. Liz Wysocki, you say you want to speak in favor and in opposition. So how are we going to do that?
That's a great question.
And like I
You
said,
didn't have a middle of the road thing. because
So you'll have 3 minutes,
Okay, thank you. Firstly, I want to thank the committee for hearing us this evening on this important topic.
Sure.
I understand, as a retired educator and administrator at the school district for 20 years, how hard it is to make decisions that not everybody is going to like or support. But I do believe that we can all agree that we want what's best for Bastrop and its citizens. We should welcome new businesses, especially ones that also support the arts. And I'm intrigued by the thought of living next to a film production studio and what it might mean for our community. Our house, Patrick and my house, is right at where the road is going to be, Kalen Court, so the back, we back up to the property, okay? At the same time, I'm very concerned about portions of the plan, specifically how the development will affect traffic patterns on Margie's Way and Lover's Lane, flooding, and noise and light nuisances. And some of this you've already talked about, your staff has already talked about, and some of our residents of River Meadow will be asking other questions and having comments about. So I support them regarding the flooding and traffic issues, but we are asking I'm asking for the committee to consider the following concerns and adjustments to the development plan regarding potential noise and light trespass. The site plan includes an amphitheater that looks very similar to the ones found at ACL or the Circuits of America. It's right next to the river, and it's within 3 miles as sound travels to several subdivisions, not just on our side of the river, but on the other side as well. There's a new Lennar Bastrop Grove subdivision that's over there as well that would be affected by sound potentially. The concern is that the privately owned venue, whose activities can potentially impact so many homes, might have ongoing noise and light issues like our neighbors in Hutto that they're currently experiencing at the Brushy Creek Amphitheater. We're asking you to add to this agreement verbiage that specifies the maximum permissible sound levels during the day and during nighttime hours. And we're also asking that the city requires permits that limit the number of events and the hours that these events can be held. For example, something like weekday events end by 9 p.m. Okay, regarding outdoor lighting, we want to make sure that the development complies with those lighting requirements, that the Bastrop Building Code ensures light trespass doesn't interrupt or interfere with the neighbors, which it sounds like you've already been addressing and hopefully will continue to address. Municipalities with similar venues have had to adjust their ordinances due to neighbor complaints and lawsuits. The venues have sometimes complied, and I stress the word sometimes. We would like these noise and light provisions included in the agreement from the get-go, and we're hopeful that this venue will comply and be good neighbors. Again, we should be supportive of new businesses in Bastrop that have the potential to enhance our quality of life, and I welcome further dialogue to ensure that this, in fact, will be what's best for our community. Thank you for your time.
Kevin Plunkett. Please give us your name and your address.
Kevin Plunkett, 110 Lincoln. I also have a business downtown. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it.
Two businesses.
Old Town and Piney Creek Shop House. And I'd just like to say, you know, this is the kind of development we want. It brings in a lot of money from out of town, which is the key for economic development, is not to recycle the money in your own town, but to bring in money from elsewhere. And I just wanted to, as a member of the EDC board, chamber board, and Visit Bastrop board, I just think this is a great project. I can't imagine, you know, what could better be done with, 350 acres.
Thank you. It's really over 400, but anyway. Okay, that's the only two that we have to speak on this item. Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff or anyone else on this item? Matt?
Just really quickly, I know that with the adoption of the new code that a lot of, nuisances was a big topic of how we regulate a lot of stuff within the city. I was just wondering if Trey wanted to speak a little bit about enforcing nuisance and the city standards that we currently have.
Yeah, so that's a very good point, and I actually made some notes about that while they were talking. We currently, with the form-based zoning that we adopted in 2019, we do not regulate use anywhere in town, only nuisance. So if you can hear it, it's too loud, if you can smell it, right? All of those types of things are a reason that we regulate nuisance, but not the use. So we think it's a pretty Texan type of code. You're allowed to do what you want on your property. You just need to be a good neighbor, and that's what we're trying to do here in this development agreement. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a couple of questions, but piggying back on that. So there is a time cutoff. I'm not using the right phrase right now for events, right? 10 o'clock? Is it 10 o'clock?
If you're talking about the noise ordinance,
Yes.
Yes, the decibel's lower at 10 p.m., I believe.
Would that apply?
All the nuisance, yes, would apply.
It doesn't mean the event has to stop, but the decibel level has to be below that.
That's right. They could, I'm sure, these are some pretty smart folks we've been working with, work around those hours and make sure something that's loud happens at a specific time and everybody's aware of it. That's kind of what I think we're talking about doing.
Okay.
And I think it's been said that all the the events will happen inside? Is that correct?
Not everything will
No,
happen inside.
I'm talking about like, if there's not the filming, I'm talking about an event such as a music
So
concert or something
So
like that.
anything related to the filming and the studio uses, right? That's what we talk about in the development agreement. Anything outside of that would go through that special event permit process. So if it's not related to the filming, so they did decide to have a big concert and, 3,000 people want to show up, we're going to want to know about that. We're going to want to have traffic plans. We're going to have cops there. I mean, all of that is when you have to come in and do a special event.
That's because you're going to be in the city limits.
Correct, right.
Mr. McLean, you want to say something?
Let me address one thing about that. There's no plans for public events of that nature. Everything that would go on there, like if the outdoor theater, if there was a concert or something, it would pertain to the business that goes on inside line 204. And if Netflix is there, or Hulu is there, and they have a crew or, a number of guests or whatever, private party, thank you, sir. Oh, I thought I heard somebody. Okay. But anyway, that's what
Okay.
we're talking about here. There's no plan for ACL East, that's not.
Woodstock's not going to come back to Bastrop, right? Oh, I'm too old. Y'all
That's
don't know
not
what
happening.
Woodstock is, do you?
That's not part of this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
How's that?
Could I ask?
Did you want to go again, Cheryl?
Yeah, I have a couple more questions. So the filming would be, all of the filming would be inside the venue? No outside filming, no outside lights?
And it's going to be on the property, outside.
On the
And-
property, yes, but outside, not all of the filming is going to take place inside. There will be filming outside on the property, correct?
Yes, they're going to have sets, various sets that, depending upon, shh, please.
Yeah, so this is what we're talking about. This is the backlot studio stuff where there may be a western style town or something of that nature, and they could do shootings there, building there.
Outdoor shooting. And, but again, in compliance with your noise ordinances and also strategically placed within the project away from the houses that we know are there already, as far as we can get them, is the plan there.
And what are some examples you could give of what the amphitheater would be used for?
Go ahead.
Sorry, don't get them like you used to. A concert, we kept saying amphitheater. I think that was my mistake when I was designing the project. I used the word amphitheater. It's not an amphitheater. These are not built-in seatings. This is a truss system, steel deck concert venue, meaning that it's going to be ripped down, put back up, or rented to someone at city limits or whatever it is, right? The concert would be like in a controlled environment. Let's just say Kenny Chesney wants to put on a concert that he's going to put on a loop on TV somewhere, right, on any kind of network. That will be in an invite-only based, let's just say it's 1,000 people controlled. So those people are invited, and it's not like you're going to open the Bastrop newspaper or the Austin newspaper. It's going to say $25 Kenny Chesney tickets. Come on down to the Colorado Bend. That's not going to be here. It won't be here, and it'll never be here. That hurts my business, not helps it. But those guys are clients of mine. So if they control, then the whole thing is filmed with sky cameras, all different kinds of things from different angles.
That
Makes
answers.
sense. What's the potential job?
We did a study for you. We did an economic impact study, and it's one of those things. It's the next couple of slides. Something to that magnitude. With what we do have is we would like to, just like in New Orleans, we can't ship in a crew is 80 people per hour episodic TV show. We would like to get as many people in the community to work those jobs as we could, because that's what I was talking about earlier, building the infrastructure. If somebody has to come here and then fly 80 crew people here, they eat up their entire budget. So the more people and the more classes that we can put on to help people get in $3.99 or typical electrical carpentry, any of those things that build sets outside, inside, the more people we can use. As you can see, I hired every single person here is either from Bastrop or Austin. I brought in nobody outside because I didn't think it was, it's not an LA project, and I don't want to use LA people as much as I can.
Thank you.
And you definitely don't want to use Alabama people.
What's the time frame?
Definitely.
What's the time frame on, if it passes, what would be the time frame on completion?
We're building in phases because I'm trying to do it all myself without bringing in private money. So the first phase would be 6, and we've got it broken down, would be 6 20,000 square foot studios, somewhere between a 80 or 100,000 square foot warehouse space. But the warehouse space is more like a mill space, a slosh to where maintenance shed, to where tractors or whatever it is we're using on the outside, and our own equipment housed in those areas.
And the time frame?
I would hope to say, I mean, you might want to ask these guys that, because I'd like to start building day one. But in essence, I would like to say probably within 3 months, I'd like to, but before then, we would like to get, the first thing I would said that I'd like to do is get a wall around the property. You know, and someone, I know that if I lived in the neighborhood, I'd be like, what kind of fence? Because I don't want some ugly little prison fence right next to me. No offense to the prisoners, but right, I don't want nobody looking at that. So I'm going to try to make it, we've got some renderings I'm happy to share or post or whatever. Yeah, there's a deck. And
Excuse me, we're talking about a concept plan only. You'll have plenty of time to address this further at a later date. It's going to go council, it may be coming back to P&Z. So we are talking about the concept. The wall probably hasn't even been defined as to what kind of wall it's going to be. So, and I don't want you to speak on something that hadn't been decided yet.
Yes, ma'am.
So, so please, you'll have time for comments in a moment, okay? Thank you.
I may be able to clarify on some of that. Again, this won't be the first bite at the apple like we talked about, or the last bite at the apple. There are still multiple steps in the development process that need to happen. We're going to talk about those a little bit on the 8th at the next council meeting. But I think the overall total build-out was somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 7 years. That sound about right? 6 years. So I was one over.
5 to 7, that's good.
Yeah, I was pretty close. Yeah. That's the engineer in him. He can't help.
That's the engineer,
right?
okay, now I understand.
So, other than that, I mean, I'll take any other questions you have.
Yeah, so you said it's a private place, right? So it's not open to the public?
That's correct. It's not open to the
So
public.
it's their like own little oasis they get to have in a way, right?
That's
Kinda.
correct.
So, yeah, Cheryl kind of asked a couple of my questions that I had, but yeah, with that coming in, that is a big factor. I know with Bastrop having a lot of people, we're growing. A lot of people need jobs. You know, the housing market's not always so fair. So I really want to make sure that, you know, you guys look to a local group if that's what y'all are going to go to definitely hire across the board.
Well, and if I can clarify something, that 1,400 jobs are not all at that location, right? That's jobs that are built into the community now with ancillary uses, right? Like you said, carpenters, electricians, people that are going to come on there, build sets. There won't be 1,400 people going to report to work there every day, just to clear that up.
Issued him, you know. Cynthia?
Yes, one of the neighbors had a question, a comment earlier, Trey, about the event limits, permits. Will there be, and I realize 1,000 people invited are different than 1,000 public, but it's still 1,000 people going in there? is there going to be a limit on major mass attended events that will be held there?
Again, that's not really I can't speak
That's
to
not
that
what we're
just yet,
talking
but yeah.
about. This is just a concept plan.
Right.
Before they want to have any kind of
Yeah.
events out there, they're going to have to submit an event permit
Sure.
and
That's
go
right.
by city
Right.
rules.
I just didn't know if there'd be a limit on permits or events or anything like that.
It kind of,
in
we have
with
to
it.
take it as they submit
Okay.
one.
And that's not the primary purpose of the place. Again, that's just a use that's allowed because we don't regulate use.
Yeah, and it's not going to be public events. It'll be something that has to do with one of their clients or having to do with filming.
Okay, and the other question I have, since it's not, I wasn't aware until the beginning of the meeting that the neighborhoods in here are just more, or the housing is more to support what's there and not really housing for public. But
Correct.
I noticed there's at least, well, one or more POAs. So what is the POA in charge of there if there's not?
The way I understand it, the POA, and maybe Bill can elaborate on this more, but that's if the property owners association, if it were to split and there were multiple partners or owners, the POA is to maintain the infrastructure inside the park. So they maintain the parks, they maintain the roads, they take care of the golf course, and that's just it's a solvent group that the property owners association maintains all of that infrastructure inside of that wall.
Thank you.
So, when it comes to building, right, is there gonna be, things gonna be built in stages? Or are you gonna plan on bombarding the whole property with all the projects? You know, what are we looking at?
So it's several phases over 6 years. The first phase, like you talked about, was the 6 20,000 square foot sound stages, which is probably one of the lowest impact uses on the property. And then there's also a building and a barn, which I think is 40,000 square feet. That's what it talks about that in the development agreement. And that's what we're talking about, the warehouse, the storage, equipment, things of that nature. And that's where they start. And then I think it all has to do with, it's commensurate with this pocketbook after that, I believe.
Debbie,
Commissioners, do you have,
Sorry.
Matt?
Just as far as going forward with this, we're amending transportation master plan. Now, this is kind of a number of things, and we're changing the use of the area that, certainly right now, as you mentioned, this is a less intensive use than what could possibly be permitted now, but we're changing long-term plans here. If this project doesn't go through and it carries a different designation as far as how it could be resold to another developer, what protections are we putting in place to ensure that this doesn't become an industrial area on the lines of a gravel pit or meat packing plant?
So if it were to continue to subdivide and change into something else, all that has to come back. If they change the concept plan substantially, all that has to be come back and be renegotiated, right? That's where the grid comes back, the transportation networks come back, all of that good stuff. So that's our catch. As they decide to develop, or if they change the concept plan and it's a major change, we come back and renegotiate.
I just have one more question because you brought up the word phases and over quite a few years. And I noticed, and I want to just make sure I understand this correctly, it will all be agriculture, wildlife exempt, and then as phases are developed, those will be changed from that. But all the property will remain exemption until it's developed in the phase. Is that correct?
That's correct. It will continue to be an agricultural use until each phase develops.
Anything else? If there's nothing else, I will close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion. Hold on. This is on item A. There were two people who wanted to speak. I only have two for item A. Did I miss one? I have a bunch for B, for 3B, but only two for A. Shh, I can't hear everybody at one time. Did someone sign up for A that I didn't get or I overlooked? If not, then I am closing the public hearing. Now, on item A only. Item 3A is a public hearing and consider action to recommend approval of the concept plan. Nothing is set in stone. What we're saying is, whether, if we approve this, we're approving the concept of having this studio in this property, as opposed to letting it go to a development where we could have 1,200 homes. So this is, the only thing before us today is whether we're going to approve the concept of having this studio here.
Can I clarify that statement just a little bit?
Sure.
The approval authority actually rests with the city council.
Exactly. I'm
What
sorry.
they're working on tonight is making a recommendation for or against.
Thank you
to
very
city
much.
council.
Yes,
No
it's a
problem.
recommendation. We're in no way approving anything except making a recommendation to the city council. Thank you.
Chairperson Moore, may I ask you a question? I'm sorry. If there's confusion on the comments, because I think a lot of these people they were confused about A, B, and C. Is there any way for this to be amended before we make a motion, or do they still just need to follow in with B? Because I think quite a few of these people wanted to comment on A, but maybe got confused.
Well, it's quite clear.
Yeah, that's...
I'm not going to speak to a gaggle of people who are yelling at me. This was sent out, it was posted, it was posted according to the law. Item B has to do with amending the transportation master plan. I think a lot of people, yes it is. Item 3B is a public hearing to consider action to approve an amendment to the transportation master plan. That has to do with the road, that has to do with issues about traffic.
I was the first one to come in and sign the document to speak. Secretary handed me the
A or B?
I would like to speak to A, whether I check.
What is your name, sir?
I was the very first person to fill out a page. I was the first person in this room. Secretary didn't explain anything about it. I'm going on my own accord. I do not have the understanding, but I would definitely like to speak to this issue.
Okay, I've just been told that we may have had some confusion when you all signed up, okay? I'm doing my best to make sure everyone gets an opportunity to be heard. Cut me some slack, please. And let's keep the decorum in this room, okay? So I'm going to go by how we've got them here. So I have Jessica Zamora. You wish to speak in opposition? You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, I certainly didn't want to go first. But I moved here from Dallas, Texas a year ago, 18 days before the pandemic. So while I appreciate LA, coming to Austin, coming to Texas, that's not why I moved here. So I'm in opposition because I moved here for the wildlife, the country living, to have my neighbors not on top of me. I lived on a 0 lot line in Dallas, Texas. So that's the reason that we don't want this here. We don't want all of the traffic. We don't want the wildlife to go away. The 14-foot wall, I've already asked my neighbors not to build a fence. And I have a neighbor that's already purchased a house. I haven't met them yet, and I've asked the builder for him to not build a fence. So we definitely do not, want a fence to keep the wildlife around. It's wonderful to see 9 deer every single night go through my backyard, and that's something that we definitely don't want to change here. The other concern is obviously roads. I don't know if that was the B part that we need to speak about as well. I guess a question that I have is how many movies are actually filmed in Texas? Because I know that there's a lot of filming that happens in Atlanta because they give tax cuts and things like that. But I'd be real interested to see, we kind of got like, we don't do it 365 days a year, but how many days do we do that?
As the former film commissioner, I can tell you we may have back-to-back issue items for a while and then nothing for 3 to 6 months. He does a little bit different than regular just a film studio, so he may have things going on more often, but it's a crew maybe of 80 people, 60 people from time to time. You really don't know until a project comes up.
Okay. I think I have a minute left. Am I able to give
Sure.
that to another community member?
Who would you like to give that to?
Michelle. And remind me your last name.
Michelle who?
Anderson. Michelle Anderson. I'd like to give my remaining minute to her.
Did she sign up?
Yes, she did.
I have Michelle Brown. Michelle Anderson.
Yep. Thank you.
Come forward, Ms. Anderson, please, and give us your name and address.
Hi, my name is Michelle Anderson, and I live at 103 Kauai Court. I understand that this is a concept plan. However, we just heard the train go by, and it was somewhat disruptive. And if you can imagine that in your neighborhood during, some sort of concert event or, whatever the case may be, it's incredibly disruptful to your home life. If you're listening, if you're watching TV or what have you, if you're outside just trying to enjoy nature like most of us do, it's a problem. And as I went through what I was able to find on the website, the report, what we really want to know is, I understand it's a concept, but we want to know what the worst case scenario is. So what can we expect? So if there is a concert with 1,000 people there, that could be loud. And has there been a sound study performed that's going to include us up in the hills to let us know how that sound is going to travel and affect our lives? Like Jessica, I moved out of Austin, out here after being a victim of crime, because I wanted to be in the wildlife. I wanted to be in nature. I didn't want the city to come to me, and that's what's happening. I have so many concerns. I'm probably not going to be able to cover them all during the time allotted. But there is a film studio that's off of 969, Spiderwood 969. It's on 200 acres. They don't really answer their phones, so I don't really know how busy they are. But it makes me wonder, how busy is this studio going to be? How sustainable is this project going to be? And if it doesn't succeed, what are we going to be left with? Open field? Is it going to convert into something else? Like, what happens to our neighborhood? Right now, we have, like Jessica was saying, we have a lot of wildlife. There's a lot of us who are dependent on that field for its nature, and that will be gone. How is this going to affect our home values? How is it going to affect our taxes? You're annexing the entire project is not within the ETJ. So now there's going to be annexation. How does that affect us? There's so many questions that are left unanswered in this project that we'd really like answers for. Huge concerns that I noted were, if you're going through Exhibit 5, the majority of the city code that is important to us has been redlined. So if you go through and you look at the tree mitigation, outdoor lighting, private streets, the sound ordinance, they're redlined. And I understand that we received assurances from others today stating that, oh, we'll take care of that. Well, if it's not in the agreement, if it's been excluded from the agreement, where's our promise?
The one quick thing I want to say to you is that because they're redlined because they don't apply. They're not going to be interior streets like it would have been if it had been in a grid for a home development.
But it should apply. It should apply because it will still affect us. That sound is going to travel outside of those private streets. The lighting is going to travel outside of those private streets. It's going to affect us. It's going to affect the wildlife. It matters to us. We go through and we try to keep our lights as dim as possible so as not to affect the environment. Yes, ma'am.
Carrie Champagne. Carrie Champagne. What's your name and your address, please, sir?
Yes, Carrie Champagne, 162 Marty's Way. I didn't actually think I was signing up to speak, but I'll say a quick something since I've been yielded some time.
You're right there.
Fantastic. I am not opposed to progress in this city or in any city that I live, have before. I know that that's inevitable when it comes to projects coming in, neighborhoods. I think probably people here are just a little bit scared that you're going to occupy this land that we've all of a sudden had open. Again, I know that progress is going to happen at some point down the line, and this is kind of some of the what they're insinuating at earlier is someone's going to get this land, someone's going to develop. That's what cities do. They bring in viable projects to help bring in tax dollars and help bring in jobs and development for the area. I think we're just a little bit scared about our neighborhood specifically, and I live on Margie's Way along with several other people here, about having an access point into the studio from Margie's Way, and that's my major concern, is having lots of traffic coming through our somewhat secluded, quiet, safe neighborhood that would go into this. And I realize that sounds a little bit selfish. If you live on El Camino River Road, or you live, further up towards Lovers, you're probably thinking, well, we don't want an entrance in our area either, right? NIMBY, as George Carlin once said, not in my backyard. So personally, I guess I should say selfishly, my concern is there's going to be lots of traffic coming through Margie's Way, which is, that neighborhood's called River Meadow. We love our neighborhood. We're great neighbors. We don't even have an HOA or a POA. We just take care of it and take care of each other. I think we're a little bit worried about encroaching upon that. So thank you.
And I do apologize, sir. You were not signed up to speak. You just were just opposed. Oh, but you got it anyway. Okay. Now, Jimmy Barker, I don't know if you're in favor or opposed. You didn't check either one of them. But do you wish to speak?
Undecided.
Okay.
Okay, first, can you put up that 204 slide that had that map? One, I was going to ask y'all, okay, when y'all do all the stuff, I'm out of the city limits. I don't want to be in the city limits. So is that, I'm sorry, 261 El Camino River Road, and my neighbor's 263 El Camino River Road, and we're there, okay. Right there, those little dots, those are RVs or mobile homes? Or, okay, what are they? Because that's what I think it insinuated.
Now, the only
I
thing
know
that-
it's a question, I apologize.
Things that will be brought in will be for those that are participating in a project.
Because
there.
that's where I live. and
It's
that
not
also-
it's not permanent.
Okay. Also, well, like I said, taxes is one of the things I'm concerned about because I don't want to pay city taxes. I'm outside the city limits, and I don't think that without this it would affect
I don't think
me
you're affected
in
with
my-
the annexation, sir.
Okay. All right. And then, of course, the traffic on El Camino River Road, you also have an entrance and an exit there. And I know for a fact when there were some heavy trucks coming up and down that road before, it's all tore up. And the way the county put it back is not an asphalt road. It's called, well, I ain't gonna say what he said, but.
I
but
think
anyhow.
I think that's an issue for the county.
Yeah, okay. All right, and then, once again, the wildlife, I know you're gonna do the best you can do. I know that, okay? But right now, I still think there's a couple of bobcats in there. There's hogs, there's deer, there's turkey, and then all the little rodents that go along with it. And I don't believe anything that you can do noise-wise is gonna keep them from crossing that river. It's not a killer deal, but that's still something to be concerned about. Okay, we got the RVs. There's also too, when I moved in, I had to get some kind of study done about the Houston toad. Okay, so I don't know whatever, but I know I had to. And that's my main concerns. And I've been, like I see, I'm an educator for over 30 years. I still am. And I don't want this to be a teachers meeting where we voice everything and we feel good about voicing and then nothing's done that we talked about. Because that's the way the teacher meetings go. Okay? But anyhow, I appreciate what you're trying to do. I do appreciate it, okay? And I appreciate everything that everybody has to say, pro and for, because it's going to bring up thoughts for us. And I'm ready for the next meeting because I'll be better prepared.
There you go. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Mark Nunnally. Please give us your name and address, sir.
Yes, I'm Mark Nunnally, and I live on 193 El Camino River Road. I've lived there. I moved in it since lived there since December of 1999. When I first moved out there was nothing out there except a few houses, some trailers, and, as the Browns will attest to, some shacks. My point is that when this construction starts, you're going to have dump trucks, 18-wheeler dump trucks, heavy equipment, and I'm just wondering if that stuff is going to come down El Camino or Margie's Way. You know, the way I look at it, all that equipment should come through that main entry exit point at the very beginning of the property there, where that gate is. They should build a road out there, and they should let their trucks and trailers go through there so that they don't tear up our roads, because we just had our road repaved by the county of Bastrop, and we got a nice road out there, and if those dump trucks and those heavy equipment trucks come out, it's going to tear up the roads, right? I mean, big time. So that's my main concern.
Thank you, sir. Susan Bloom. Your name and address, please, ma'am.
Susan Bloom, 109 Eleanor Lane, in the River Meadow subdivision. We are concerned about the timeline of the construction. There's nothing set in stone of what's going to be happening first. On page 43, it states the developer may construct fencing along the entire boundary. I'm kind of on the fence now because I want the fence, because I don't want to see all the buildings and stuff, because I live right next to that. So, I mean, I know I've seen 24 deer cross that fence, go down to the river and drink. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. But as a homeowner, I don't want to see all their buildings and things. I want to be able to enjoy our subdivision without seeing all their buildings. It says they may be a 10-foot high with a berm, 4-foot high, 14-foot high, but it doesn't say they will. It's they may. You know what I mean? It's like, I think it should say we will build this perimeter fence to keep our things in. If the existing trees that border the property along Lover's Lane and along our Margie's Way, because they're really bad trees, if they're going to tear them down and build a berm on that, because that's their property, if they're going to build a berm with the fence there, how that's going to be built, you know? Will drainage issues, because the front entrance of ours, when it rains a lot, it floods now. So if they don't address all their drainage issues with putting all these huge buildings right there, you know, it needs to be drained well to get, because there's going to be a lot of concrete, a lot of buildings, so drainage needs to go down to the river, not to Lover's Lane or whatever. Are all the entrances going to be gated, you know, locked, you know, not open to the public, which I think it should be? Then again, on page 43 of the proposal, there was many things that were crossed out. There was tree mitigation crossed out, parking shall not apply, outdoor lighting crossed out, private streets were crossed out, noise crossed out, special events crossed out. These are many things that have been crossed out, which makes us believe that developers don't want to adhere to the criteria. This development will affect many subdivisions on both sides of the river. Out on 304, there's subdivisions, you know, in back of Walmart, there's all those new subdivisions. Everybody's gonna hear their concerts. I think the developers have heard that us neighbors are really, really concerned about the concerts. Maybe you should build an indoor facility with 1,000 seats and have it contained inside your building. That way, everybody, all your neighbors would be happy. We wouldn't hear all your loud music and, okay. We love our small community of River Meadows, and just want to keep it quiet.
Christopher Hugel.
First off, thank you for consideration and reconsidering.
Sure. Give us your name and address, please, sir.
Christopher Hugel, we're at 236 El Camino. We're one of two families that's called out by name on page 30. So my wife and I, our 10-acre property on El Camino River Road is a registered farm in Bastrop County, okay, under the name Blenderhook Ranch. Our farm is ag exempt, state registered apiary under the same name with an additional bee yard located off of Lover's Lane. We raise chickens, sheep, and honeybees, and we take every measure to be good environmental stewards. We follow organic, chemical-free practices for both the land and our livestock. And first, I want to say that we were appalled that people that were only 200 feet from the property were notified about this project and given the opportunity to vote. And your numbers clearly show with what 13 responses, the overwhelming response is negative, and ours as well, negative. The decision to rezone this acreage as part of the city of Bastrop, without the knowledge and consent of your neighbors or consideration to the property, we feel is underhanded and a little inexcusable. The impact to the proposed construction will not only reduce the forage necessary to support our honeybee colonies, it will also introduce the use of additional chemical pesticides and herbicides, which will be necessary to maintain the proposed landscape and your golf course. This is a potential death sentence to my bees. Beekeepers are losing bees at an enormous rate due to pesticide and chemical use, as well as GMO monocropping. In 2020, preliminary loss percentage across the U.S. was reported at 44%. This is per the National Honeybee Loss Survey by BeInformed.org. Check it out. We were not exempt from this, and we experienced a personal loss in 2020 of 30%. If anything, we need measures to help ensure environmental protection to help the honeybees, which in turn helps humanity, not new construction, and not the additional chemical use. In a few short days, this proposal has turned our lives upside down and the lives of our neighbors. We believed that we had found a place that we can live in that was quieter, we could have a more self-sufficient lifestyle, and now we're facing challenges and are being forced to make decisions that affect our home, our future, and our livelihood. The stress and mental anguish over our new uncertain future is great, and all of this is due to this outrageous proposal. Mr. Butler, I appreciate what you're trying to do. I appreciate your grassroots. I looked you up. I even tried to, hit you up on LinkedIn. I did hit up their wife because she was the only one available. But
She's never available for me to
you started out in the garage. Nobody came and crushed your dream, and you've become very successful. You're obviously a very successful individual. This is our dream. This is our life. This is what we plan for our future. We look out, we see the deer, we see the turkey, we see all these things. That's all going to go away. Thank you.
I'm out there. I'll come to you anytime, because I don't think I'm
236. Come on back.
Excuse me, let's not. Kara Brown. Kara Brown. Your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Kara Brown. I live at 1309 Lovers Lane. And if you look up there, there's a sign that says Future Phase 3 Entrance. That's right in front of my home. I have a little boy who's 10 years old. He's about to be 11. At this point right now, with the traffic we have now, I can't allow him to walk down the road to visit with his friends because the road is narrow. I went out there today to the end of my driveway after 1.5 inches of rain, looked across the street, and the barge is full of water, and the water is about to come across to my side of the street. My neighbor has flooded twice. In the past 2 weeks, she has had water come through her front door. These are my concerns. And excuse me for being a little bit emotional right now. I've had a rough week. I won't bore you with my life. What I'm concerned about is my neighbors, my friends. We love where we live. I don't want to wake up every morning, open my garage door, and see a 14-foot wall and feel like I live in Baghdad. I don't want to go outside to catch fireflies with my son, and all of a sudden, you're shooting a movie about Fallujah, and all I can hear is boom, boom, boom. You say you're not putting out this big, huge amphitheater. I looked where it's located. It points towards my home. I love being able to get outside and do things with my kids. My daughter just graduated high school. I want her to be able to do the things she wants to do too. And I understand that you have dreams and you've chased yours. But I want my kids to be able to be kids right now. I want them to be able to ride their bike down the road. I want to be able to take my dog for a walk. But right now, all I can worry about is how bad are the roads going to be tore up? Am I going to be able to get my kids to school on time? Because traffic already backs up on Lover's Lane. There's one way in and there's one way out for us. That is it. And it already floods. My husband, who's a sheriff's deputy, went down towards where your main entrance is right there and pulled people out of their homes during the Memorial Day floods and the Halloween floods. All I'm asking is just do a little bit of research and think what you would be doing to us flood-wise.
Thank you. James Brown.
Good
Name and
evening.
address, please, sir.
James Brown, 167 El Camino River Road. Thanks for letting me speak. My wife and I purchased 167 El Camino Road back in '07 as a lot, and we finally were able to build about 3 years ago. We've been very fortunate, you know, with the growth in the greater Central Texas area, you know, and over the last 20 years or so. And so, you know, like others that have stepped up, I can appreciate that, you know, this man is trying to, you know, do something wonderful and bring some, you know, growth to Bastrop. I just don't think the 552 project, proposed as is, isn't going to be without some environmental noise and light pollution that's going to, you know, it's going to creep into everybody's yards. And I think it's going to be a lot more than just, you know, 4 to 6 months out of the year. And a venue of that size is going to, you know, generate those 1,000 people venue concerts. And, you know, one of my questions is, where are all those people going to park? Are they going to park up and down our streets and then come stumbling out drunk and drive down our roads after those concerts? I just don't believe that is a great spot next to an existing residential community where people have lived for decades to put that type of a theme park in. I really think that's going to be a bad decision. There's one road that your constituents can get in and out of right now to access their homes. I know what new construction looks like, and with that size of a project, you're going to have 18-wheelers, the dump trucks, the concrete mixers, all this stuff. And I think at the very least, if this is approved, they need to put an access road to 304 immediately so that they can alleviate some of that traffic. And it's kind of a safety concern if, you know, we burn, we flood again. You got one road to get thousands of people out safely. That's a big concern for me, because I was here when Bastrop burned. It was horrible. You know, the wall, that's terrible for the wildlife. It's terrible for us. I'm just opposed. And I appreciate your time.
Philip, is it Lawhon? Give us your name and address, please.
Yes, hello, my name is Philip Lawhon. I live at 196 Margie's Way in River Meadow. I've been a resident there for 16 years. This community, this neighborhood that I moved into and sought out to raise my family and my children there, I selected it because it has the small town, secluded, royal community feel. It's just outside of Bastrop city limits, but it's still close to Austin. We have access to a lot of things, but this neighborhood is not like many neighborhoods these days. This neighborhood, you can't find these anymore. We don't have to be helicopter parents like most of us do in our communities with everything that's going on in the world. We're allowed to let our children come out and play. There's about 65 homes in my neighborhood, and there's about 30-something kids that live in that neighborhood. It's a very oriented kid neighborhood. We have no sidewalks. We have no street lights. The roads are small. That's where our children play every day after school and in the summer. They ride their bikes, they skateboard, they rollerblade, they walk their dogs. We have handicapped children that go out in their wheelchairs and ride the streets. This neighborhood, we have adults that do the same thing. They go out, they exercise. We have elderly people that live in our neighborhood that are retired, and that's what they do during the day. You know, they go outside and exercise and enjoy their neighborhood, okay? They're proposing 6 points of interest. I live right there on the dotted line that they put up there a while ago with the red dots where all the warehouses are. That's River Meadow right there in that community. There's at the very end of that street, there's an entrance and an exit. If you notice, there's 6 points of entrance and exits throughout for this development. You know, what I'm asking, why do they need 2 points of entrance and exits into River Meadow? Why do they need one into El Camino Real? They're proposing to build something across 304. Great, let them do it. They got the money to build all this. Build their own roads, build their own entrance. Don't come into our neighborhoods and take over our neighborhoods with your traffic, okay? It's not acceptable. We don't like it. They're talking about proposed future possibilities of opening these entrances. We're going to oppose it. Every proposal they do, we're going to oppose it. So just letting you know. This neighborhood is not built for a commercial thoroughfare, okay? We don't need construction vehicles, maintenance vehicles, industrial vehicles coming through there, non-residents, event traffic. We don't want it. We don't need it, okay? You're going to have unfamiliar drivers coming in our neighborhood. You're going to have potential inebriated drivers coming from these events or Old Town or wherever they're coming from, coming through our neighborhood. It's not acceptable, okay? There's no maintenance to little of maintenance. Even on Lover's Lane, don't even happen. So how's it going to happen in our neighborhood? It's not, are they going to pay for it? Probably not. We just hope that the developer will be a good neighbor and take our issues into consideration, okay? And also, we want you guys to take into consideration of a neighborhood concept, okay, that already exists, okay? And then we want to appreciate you for serving in our community and sitting on this board and taking the best interests at heart for your fellow Bastropians in the community. Thank you.
Kaylin Champagne? Oh, you're not. Okay, thank you. Garrett Thompson?
Garrett Thompson, 211 Margie's Way, in the River Meadow subdivision. I live right at the very end of Margie's Way there, depicted on the map where the entry and exit is, as well as the 5-acre agricultural and land management storage area is. Greetings Commission, thank you for allowing me to comment regarding Planning and Zoning Commission special meeting held today in regards to agenda items 3A, 3B, and 3C as they are proposed, related to the proposed 546-acre development by Bastrop 552. I'm a resident of Bastrop County, reside in the ETJ of the city of Bastrop, and am one of 57 property owners within 200 feet of the development and an adjoining property owner, and one of the respondents to the mailed notice that requested more information. As I read through the documents, one thought kept popping into my head: what is in it for me? Not just me as an individual and adjoining property owner to the development, but also me as a resident and contributing member to the county, community, and neighborhood of River Meadows, as a taxpayer and father raising the kids in a nice, quiet neighborhood. It was concerning to me that not once was there mention or a consideration clause in the development and annexation agreement for neighboring property owners or neighborhoods. The benefits are made clear for the property and owner or parties, but what about the rest of us? We are here today. We're left with many unanswered questions that were proposed earlier. Questions regarding annexation, which again, I know this is concept plan, so I won't get into all the questions. Questions regarding the public right-of-way. What does this entail? Exhibit G, the perimeter roadway, was not attached as referenced in the annexation agreement, right? So we have no clue what this public or perimeter road is going to entail, what its design is. We know a little bit about it, 55.5 foot wide, yada, yada, yada. As well, concerns with congestion and impacts that we see on Lover's Lane, as well as the new overpasses on Highway 71. It's a construction nightmare right now if you ever make it down that way, and I'm not sure how people are going to get in from the west side or from the east side, and all the traffic issues that entail. Regarding plans for Margie's Way, which is currently a local collector street, again, it's an entrance exit, construction, entrance. What are the plans for Margie's Way in connection to the new public right-of-way? Regarding fencing, same questions, the berm, privacy fencing, what's that look like? What's that look like for me being an adjoining landowner that's gonna have now a public road right next to my property that I once enjoyed the wildlife and the turkey and the deer. And by the way, there's a rattlesnake den over there you're gonna have to deal with. You've got rattlesnakes in the yard too. Regarding the development, what is the intended use for the 5-acre Phase 1 storage agriculture and land management building area? Again, today, I'm neither opposed nor for the development, just asking questions, want to know more about it so I can make a better informed decision. Thank you for your consideration.
Sure, you signed up to speak on A, B, and C. Do you want to come back up? Or are these
Just A.
Okay,
This is
thank
fine.
you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Wanted to be sure. Sunday Thompson. Your name and address, please, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Sunday Thompson. I live at 211 Margie's Way since 2007. We are the adjoining property to the Bastrop 552 development where the 5-acre tract of storage maintenance buildings are going to exist. My main argument, I guess, is that I adamantly oppose Bastrop 552 using Margie's Way as an entry-exit point. Margie's Way is a residential street in a neighborhood that does not have sidewalks. My children are accustomed to playing and riding their bikes on the streets because we lack sidewalks. The road is not built to withstand heavy traffic and large trucks. Furthermore, in Article 4.9, it talks about the owner will finance, design, and construct and install all the streets within their own property. And then I suggest that the City Council require Bastrop 552 to utilize the entry and exit points off of Lover's Lane and develop their own internal roadways and forego the entry exit at Margie's Way. To support this suggestion, Article 4.11, Transportation, Public Right-of-Way, suggests that the perimeter roadway that runs along parallel to Margie's Way and then down the perimeter of their property to, I guess that would be the south-ish. I suggest that the perimeter roadway be constructed and utilized by Bastrop 552 within the initial phases of the development. That way we're not accessing any of the subdivisions that are currently abutted to the property. This also supports the city's amendment for the city's transportation master plan. So I guess I'm speaking to 3.B or 3B. Upon closing, I just ask that you make known the benefits of this development to the residents of Bastrop. For where I stand, I only see degradation to my property. Instead of breathtaking views and open pasture, they'll be replaced with a 14-foot fence. Instead of cows and horses, which my daughter asked for horse brushes for Christmas to brush the horses that come up to our fence line, will be replaced with lights, noise, and traffic, all without consideration or compensation for our losses. Thank you.
Gwen Winter? You don't wish to speak, right? Joanna Gito?
Good evening, Joanna Gito, 131 Mamalu Drive in Bastrop. And I just wanted to thank the commission to be receptive to hear our questions, our concerns, and for the developer and the owner to know the heartbeat of this community. I didn't get a letter. I don't live 200 yards from the venue, proposed venue. But I think that this is going to have an impact on all of us in some way, right? And everything is pluses and minuses. And so one of the things I've been rather passionate about is the roads in Bastrop. And so I don't think we're looking at this holistically, what this means with these roads. So in this snapshot, that traffic, first of all, we don't have any kind of concept or information about traffic studies that are going to be done. I know it's just the basic concept. But these roads, that road is a 4-inch road base. It is not going to sustain 18-wheeler traffic. So unless we're hearing about road construction, bridge over the river, those kind of things are going to be huge impediments for this project. The other thing I want to talk about is, we're talking about, I think it was mentioned earlier, decreased traffic impact by having this type of thing, industrial, versus a residential development. And I would like to know how that is actually decreased traffic, because you do have cars going in and out, but that's significantly different than 18-wheelers going in and out, or buses of people to populate this village. So I think that it would be very interesting to know what the decibel level will be as well, because how can we say it's just impacting people in a small perimeter around it if we don't really know what that number could be, right? As somebody said earlier, worst case scenario. I'm trying to think of other things. Oh, and the beach scene, it being in a floodplain, that beach scene could be a lot bigger than what you're proposing, because that area floods significantly. I think that is the summation of my time. And if I have time left over, may I grant it to somebody? 44 seconds. May I grant that to somebody else?
Sure.
Okay. Can it be the next speaker, please?
Sure. George Piazza.
My name is George Piazza. I live at 127 Eleanor Lane, River Meadows subdivision.
Welcome.
Thank you. Most of my comments I'm going to address to the gentlemen that are here. Coming toward the end, about everything has been said about the concerns. For me, it's River Meadows subdivision, and it's whether or not there's going to be access to your project down Margie's Way. Now, if my memory serves me correct, about 6 years ago, there was another development planned along there, housing and residential. And also there was an idea that they were going to use Margie's Way. I had the good fortune at that time to meet one of the developers before a meeting like this. I don't recall his name. I couldn't tell you what he looked like. He'd be sitting right here. I wouldn't remember him. But I will tell you that he listened before the meeting intently to me and one of the other residents about our concerns about that street, what was going to happen with the traffic going up and down it. And when the meeting started, during the course of the meeting, he made the announcement that I'm going to change my plan and not use Margie Way as an exit or an entrance to our projects. And so here we are again with a new project, and various comments about what's going to be done, what's going to be the streets. Well, River Meadows is not a concept, it's a real subdivision. Some of your ideas that there have been comments about, well, these are concepts we don't know yet. All the people here are not concepts. They have homes over in that area, and they have their concerns. Has there been any study about this wall and berm? Is it going to affect the drainage? Will we suddenly have drainage issues in our subdivision? You know, is it going to affect drainage on your property? How's it going to affect the river? Is the authorities that are in charge of that river been contacted? How do they feel about your proposal? How does the EPA feel about your proposal? How does Parks and Wildlife feel about your proposal? What impact it's going to have on this area? Frankly, I'm kind of like the idea, but I have a lot of questions and concerns. And another big question is this, what y'all are not calling an amphitheater, but was listed as one. Whatever you call it, it's still a rose. You know, you're going to have sound, you're going to have maybe 1,000 people there. Is that all going to blare right into River Meadow subdivision so we listen to it? Are we going to have the same issues as Hutto, where they've actually stopped that event arena until they could study the sound problems? So I haven't really heard anything this evening that addresses these issues, that says, you know, there was some comments about y'all have these indoor sound stages and you're going to do things there, and that's great. And that y'all want to minimize the lighting so that it doesn't really create a problem for the subdivision. That's great. But I really have an issue about that outdoor sound theater. Exactly why is it there, and what's it going to do to living in that neighborhood? And how much sound is there really going to be? Because so far I haven't heard anything about we're going to regulate this, we're going to control that, we're going to do these things. You know, it's one issue when you have all of this built and the residents come in and they put in houses next door to you and then suddenly want to tell you what to do. It's another kind of another thing that this is the subdivision already here, and we're asking, what are y'all going to do to be a neighbor to us and to help us to minimize drainage and flooding issues if you build this large wall, to minimize the traffic, especially coming through a subdivision like River Meadows? You know, and other people are going to say, well, we don't want you coming through. The young lady who spoke about the entrance that will be right in front of her house. I know where her house is, and I sympathize with that also.
Thank you, Mr. Piazza. I'm sorry, your time's up.
That's okay. I've said more than I need to. Thank you a lot.
Adam, is it one? Name and address, please, sir.
Yes, it's Adam Wantz, 146 Margie's Way. And thank you all for your time tonight. Some of the top concerns, as you've already heard, are the flooding issues. Flooding has ramped up over the past several years in this area. FEMA has recently updated our area flood map. For example, our friend's house on Lover's Lane, facing a new development, has flooded 4 times in the past 5 years. FEMA has increased the flood rating from X to an AE status, which is a more risk-averse flood zone. Because of this, their flood insurance went from $400 a year up to an outrageous $5,100 a year. Another concern with flooding is emergency exits and the closed roadways. There's not a lot of access roads to go in and out of our neighborhood. It's pretty well closed off. There's an article on Texas A&M's website that discusses exactly the problem we face now. As stated on their website, the intent is to slow the volume of stormwater runoff and capture as much as you can to increase the ground absorption. You're looking to reduce the amount of impervious surfaces such as parking lots, which are a significant contributor to urban flooding. This is exactly what would happen when we add more development without proper flood planning. In regards to the proposed berm at the 4-foot high that wraps around River Meadows community, there should also be a drainage ditch to the best entrance of both sides. Okay, I'm going to shorten that up. Because right now, I have 3 to 4 inches of water standing in my backyard just from today. So I do not want to have any more water in my backyard. We also have a neighbor that used an electric water pump now to transfer water out of their backyard where their septic was when it rains like today. We also all have aerobic or leach field type septic systems, and if they get flooded, can cause sewage backups, hazardous contamination, and expensive repairs. The second item, and I'll go over this quickly, just like everybody else mentioned, the traffic on Lovers Lane, Margie's Way, specifically Margie's Way where I live. We do not want to see the increased traffic on Margie's Way and ask that we be taken out of consideration for both entry and exit points as per the project plans. We cannot have any more traffic on Margie's Way due to existing deterioration and non-maintenance of our roads, especially any construction vehicles. I'm finished up, just a couple of questions just to take away from this as you think about this. Has Bastrop or the developer created a current flood survey and received feedback from professional surveyors regarding this project? The other question is, has a soil erosion study been completed? The other question is, how do we plan to mitigate all the flood risks for both sides? Can we expect more maintenance to be completed on Lovers Lane and Margie's Way after this new development has completed? Thank you all for your time.
Michelle Anderson, I think you spoke earlier. I did. Thank you. Jan Kuchel.
Hello. 116 Konahuanui. My name's Jan Kuchel. I don't live all that close. I'm a river rat, and where you look at the river bend, you go around the most pristine part of kayaking and river riding that you do. And a lot of my friends, how many people are river rats in here? Okay. How many people ride that river? So what is going to be, is there going to be a wall all around the river on that side? How much of the natural landscape or the natural tree, how many trees are you going to cut down? You know, when these bees, the problem with pollinators, can you plant some pollinating plants in there to, you know, mitigate some of those that are going to be raised? Are there going to, raised meaning, you know, cut out. How much of paving paradise and putting up parking lots is there going to be? I guess I have a lot of questions. So I came with questions, not complaints, and open to hearing solutions, because I really believe that there are solutions every time there's an opening. But, you know, I am on the board of the Property Owners Association for Tahitian Village, which is kind of a large subdivision right next to it. And so I have a lot of people that had just asked different things about, of course they were, I'm not going to say the word flooding, I'll just do you a favor there, but noise. And also, can you use dark light, or I'm sorry, dark sky lighting? Can that be made possible? We just want to, we love our wildlife, whether it's avian, whether it's water, whether it's land. And we like to be able to protect that and kind of have, I guess, the lifestyle that we've known to some degree. So lots of things have already been covered. I guess Tuesday next, what is that about?
We'll make a recommendation to the council.
Okay.
And then the council will take this up on first reading.
Okay. So where do we get answers to these questions?
I'm sorry, approval? Okay.
So when do we get answers to these questions? Because most of what I hear are people coming with, this is short, with questions, and as am I. So where do we get the answers to these?
I would say come to the council meeting.
Okay. And say what?
Come to the council meeting.
On Tuesday. Shall do. Okay, thank you for your time. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Jeff Vance. Does not wish to speak.
I'm good.
Okay. Jane Villanueva? Janie? Sorry.
Janie Villanueva. I live at 359 Nene Lane and 151 Pohokalua. So I don't live right close to it, but I do drive Lover's Lane every day to get it to my house, to and from work. And I will say that one of the reasons why I moved to Tahitian is because of the same thing, the nature. You know, I'm from the valley, and it's funny that, speaking of the wall, sorry if I'm nervous, but so many people oppose the wall at the border, which is needed.
Can you speak into the microphone, please, so folks at home can hear you?
So many people oppose the wall at the border, right, which is really needed, and yet here we're for it. Doesn't make any sense to me, but I think that it's very important for us to really focus on what's important to our families versus just a business. I understand many Californians are moving to Texas. We have our way of living here, our lifestyle, just the way of, the way Texans live. We are very friendly. We do provide that neighborly love. However, we also believe in respect. And I think that when a business comes in without really listening to their neighbors, that's the problem right there. So I really hope that everyone here kind of listens to that and takes that into consideration. So,
Sherry, and I can't read your last name. Ostargan? Am I close?
Close enough.
Your
I'm
name?
Sherry Van Sargent. I'm 121 Eleanor Lane, and I'm right there in the River Meadows area also. I think a lot of them have already said what a wonderful community we have. I've been there since 2001, and it's like a family, like all your neighbors are your family. Everybody, all the kids are out playing all the time. The older people are walking the streets day and night. If an ambulance comes, everybody runs to make sure that everything is okay. It's a wonderful place to live. I think the best thing would do is just not take all that traffic through the through Margie's Way. If you can find another way to go around, and probably not the other neighborhood either, that would probably be best. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you. David Jenkins.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Good-
I'm David Jenkins. I live at 105 Eleanor Lane in River Meadows subdivision. I've been a resident of Bastrop County for over 50 years. I've seen it grow from a little bit of nothing to what it is today. I think people need to step back and look at the big picture. I think this development, I'm all for it. I think it's a better thing. I think it's good for the environment itself. I think they're going to do more than what a residence would do. If we put 1,200 homes in there, you've got much more impervious cover than what they're projecting to do. They got open land site with a few buildings. Put 1,200 homes. Look at the impervious cover, all the streets, all the drainage issues and everything that goes with that. Not to mention all the added cars. 1,200 homes, that's a minimum of 2,400 cars. When they have events, it'll be every few days, every month, you never know. When you build a subdivision in there, them 1,200 cars, you're going to be fighting to get out of Lover's Lane every morning. 2,400 cars, 1,200 homes, 2,400 cars. That's just 2 cars per house. We need to step back and say, what's better for River Meadows? I love the subdivision. It's nice. Everybody helps everybody. We take care of everybody. And I feel for their concerns. The developer, I'm in the construction industry. I've been doing it for over 40 years. I'm very well aware of what's going to happen, how to do it. I can do it in my sleep. But they will take care and take the right steps for all the traffic, the construction entrances, the environment. The tall fence, yeah, that's something that's debatable. You know, there's ways they can structure things. They can turn the amphitheater different ways, face it down the river, turn the sound other ways to eliminate the wall, the tall fence, or step it back in, make it segued so you can get it through it and around it. There's a lot of things that can be done to protect our way of life and our wildlife. The perimeter fence, yeah, I'm against. That's not, I wouldn't go that route. There's other ways around it. The roads, the added traffic of the subdivision would be much worse on them than what they're proposing. But when they do come in with this development, I know the roads are going to be upgraded along with the drainage. The drainage is a big issue there. A lot of this property has a big crown in it. Part of the drainage goes to the river, the other part goes into Lover's Lane and Rivers Meadows. Right now, it's a ranch. All that water sheds right in everybody's homes. When it's developed, he's gonna change that. The water's gonna, per law, he has to capture his water and take it to the proper drainage. It will relieve the drainage off Lover's Lane and out of everybody's backyards. They need to understand what the development will actually bring. Traffic's a bigger issue. Margie's Way access, I agree. I live there. They can position their interests. I agree not to come through the subdivision with the traffic. For the maintenance building, for workers and stuff, and certain staff, you know, small amount of traffic is one thing. But their main events and everything, no, that's not the place for their access. And once again, I know the developer, being in the business for a long time, and they can critique their drawings and rearrange things to make everybody as happy as possible. Making everybody happy is impossible. But, I mean, I think it's a good thing. I think it's really good for the economy of Bastrop. I think it'll help bring a lot of wealth and a lot of things here. And I think everybody should consider the alternative. Let their little events every month or two, and what little bit of access they have, are 1,200 homes and 2,400 cars every morning when you go to work.
Thank you, sir.
Think about it.
Michelle Brown, did you speak? No, you have not spoken.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Your name and address, please.
Michelle Brown. I live at 167 El Camino River Road. 3 years ago, like my husband had said earlier, we spent our hard-earned money to build our retirement home on El Camino River Road. We moved from Austin because we wanted to be in the country where it was quiet and lots of wildlife. We've owned the lot since 2007, so we know how much wildlife is here. It's nothing to see 27 turkeys in my backyard the other day, or deer, or bobcats, raccoons, skunks, everything. It's just amazing. 2 days ago, we found out from a neighbor who found out from a local business owner that we're going to be subject to basically a theme park in our back, or across the street from us. We were never notified or given a chance to disagree with the zoning changes on this, which made us very upset. Now this puts our home on the edge of the county line, which we would have never built, being that close to city. Here's my concerns. First of all, there's only one entrance in from Highway 71. You know, there's a lot of traffic coming and going on that road as there is now. And then now we're going to add semis and trucks and trailers and more people coming and going, especially when they have a concert or a venue there. Also, what happens when it floods or there's a fire like in 2011? We were actually evacuated. How are you going to get more people out, especially if they've got campers and renters and all sorts of people staying there? This really makes it bad. So looking at their map, all their entrances are coming in off of Lover's Lane, Margie's Way, and El Camino River Road, all right? So at this point, I'm proposing that they actually make an entrance going off to the back to 304. They can do something there and alleviate some of these coming in on our roads, which right now Lover's Lane is just a bad road any time of the day. The El Camino River Road back entrance needs to be shut down and leave us as a dead-end subdivision. Not that I don't care about everybody else, but there's no plans on helping us out with a road or anything there. So the third entrance needs to be put on the other side of the park to allow more ways to come in and out. Because, like I said, it's a bad idea to have all your entrances on one side of the street. El Camino River Road is a quiet place, and we want it to remain that way. We don't want it to become a heavily traveled road with RVs and unwanted vehicles, and certainly don't want to hear the parties from the rentals and the campers back there, or the unwanted trash in our yards. The next thing my concern is the golf course. Okay, it's right there on the river. Golf courses are notorious for chemically fertilizer going into the river. So how about that? What are you doing to our wildlife there? I mean, I just have one thing to say, be honest. If you lived on Lover's Lane, Margie's Way, or El Camino River Road, would you want this project in your backyard or across the street from you? Think about that. And we appeal to you, don't take away the lifetime of our dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen Vance signed up but does not wish to speak. With that, that is the end of the citizens who have signed up to speak. Pablo, I see you pushed in at your light. What you need?
Yes, can we pull up the plan that we have currently? So just to, I'm sorry I was late, a little bit of traffic out there coming from Austin, but it rains and everybody slows down, right? So one of the reasons I got involved with planning and zoning, and I moved here to Bastrop in 2017, but I've been driving here since I was a little kid going to camp there in the state park, so I love Bastrop. But I knew growth was coming. We know growth is coming. And so I got involved, and I got involved with planning and zoning. You're seeing right up there a grid. Someone brought it up earlier. I know development is going to happen. What we want to do is try to get the best development. We want people, particular developers that want to develop with us as partners, that want to work with our neighbors. I know another comment was brought up. What about the neighbors? And I do think that they're thinking about that. So as far as flooding, that's by code. You can't flood, your neighbors. So flooding will be, and drainage issues are going to be taken care of by our code. We've actually raised the bar in Bastrop. We stopped development for about a year so that we could change how we handle drainage. So we don't need to be worried about that. Lighting, obviously, we are a bird city, so that's going to be a major concern. So these are concerns that we're going to work with developers. But we want developers that want to work with us. They are in the ETJ, and I think they have some leeway right now that they don't really have to have as if they were in the corporate city limits. So that's what you brought up. There's a lot of things that are not going to be applied to them at this point. So I guess what I would say to the concerns is, number one, a lot of the concerns is about the way of life, the way it is right now and how quiet it is. You can see up there that the long-term plan is it's not going to ever be like that. Bastrop is fast. It's growing, and that's the plan right now, and those roads up there are coming. So it's a matter of time. And so now we have a situation, we have a development that could be different. Someone brought up about how much impact, how many people and how many cars are going to be in. I would agree that that's a lot more cars, a lot more people, a lot more houses. We had an issue not too long ago, I think it was just last year, people were worried about apartment buildings and things like that. So I think we have to look at what's going on here. We have to remain true to what fiscally sustainable. I think that's one of our number one things we want to have. I guess what I'm trying to say to the rest of us here is we have to look at this, and I wish it were so much easier that nothing was happening, right? But it's going to happen. And so we have to try to find out what's the best thing for this and how does that in the long term impact Bastrop. So we want developers that want to see that, the beauty that Bastrop is, and to try to make it better in some way, but it's going to happen. So I just want to bring that up, say my piece, but I'm thinking that this is something that, it's a concept like you put down. There's some things that need to be worked out. I think traffic is huge, how we're going to handle traffic, noise. Those are the kind of things that I think that the staff has the work cut out for them.
I don't think I officially closed the public hearing, but with the last person signed up to speak, the public hearing is closed. Mr. Harris, you have something you'd like to say?
Yes. So, like Pablo, part of the reason why I joined is I want to see the right things happen in Bastrop. I love living here in the city. I love the country atmosphere. But I am aware that it is growing, and that is also why I joined this commission. I want to be able to have a good say-so in the development of the community, have the right people come in that's going to benefit the community. That's why one of my concerns was the job and the impact. If I lived over there, I would have some concerns. I see a lot of the concerns seem to be coming through the neighborhood, right? I would think that, I can't remember your name, but the developer is what we're going to call him, that, you know, he would do things to work. So you've been taking a lot of notes, and so I would hope that you would take things into consideration. The reality of things is that the property belongs to someone, right? And they're going to be, like, we only have a certain amount of, like, what we can say, right? So if we can help out and get a decision in versus a community, which to me brings a whole lot more. I go down Lover's Lane from time to time, and I've seen over the years how much traffic goes down that road. And so I wouldn't want to see an increase, right? It would cost, or there would be a lot of things that would have to be done to that road if we added another neighborhood. I think, you know, having this here could benefit, but there are some things that's going to need to be concerned. The drainage issue, or need to be addressed. The drainage issue, not just for the people in River Meadows, but the people down the river, right? The Colorado River peaks all the time when it rains. From upstream, they open floodgates, boom, it comes, it gets us, right? So if we have a big rain event and we have water coming here with the size of this facility here, if whatever's running to the river, that's going to increase the amount of flow of water that goes downstream to the other folks in Tahitian Village. And most of those people, or some of those, or whoever, are not here to address that, but that's what I can see increasing, and that is a major concern. So I'll leave it at that. I might have something else, but I'm good right now. Thank you.
I just want to start out by thanking every one of you for coming out tonight to voice your concerns, because this is what it takes. It takes people in your communities and your neighborhoods making sure that we and the staff and council understand what your concerns are. Had nobody come out tonight, none of these issues may not have even been thought of or addressed. So that's the importance of being active in your community and voicing your opinion. So I want to thank all of you. Wasn't quite sure what was going on when I drove up in the parking lot, but I appreciate each and every one of you being here. Bastrop is going to grow. We've tried to keep Bastrop small town I've been here all my life. I remember when Tahitian had a couple of houses and a cliff, and that's where we went to drink, on that cliff. So I've been here a long time and watched Tahitian grow out. Shocked that it's not part of the city, but that's a work in progress. Bastrop is going to grow to a point where we need better jobs. We need diversity. We need better opportunities for the people growing up here. I, because of COVID, don't have to drive into Austin every day and did not know how wonderful of a feeling that was until COVID hit and I'm working from home. I can imagine the amount of people that would prefer to have employment here in Bastrop, and this is one thing that this development will do for us. We have growth to the west for homes. Our city within the limits is saturated, so there aren't a whole lot of opportunities for us to bring in a development of this type to the city of Bastrop. So I think it's important that We listened to all of your concerns. I know that our staff is going to make sure that all of those concerns are addressed. I am actually going to hold you all accountable for continuing to follow the process to make sure that your concerns are addressed. It's not enough to come to one meeting. I encourage you to be at every meeting to ask questions. I encourage you to reach out to the council, to us, to staff with your questions so that they can be addressed in future meetings should this move forward. But I do, like Mr. Jenkins, want us to also look at the bigger picture. We do need better development opportunities here. We do need to grow in the right direction and provide the right opportunities for our citizens, and trust us to hold the developers accountable with what we have in place for new development. So again, I appreciate each and every one of you coming out. I have written down many of your concerns that I will make sure that I stay on top of as we go through this process. And again, please feel free to reach out and let us know what your future concerns are, because you will have more opportunities to address these issues down the road. But I would like for you all to leave here seeing the bigger picture of what this could bring to our community of Bastrop in terms of, especially in terms of our economy. Bastrop, I always say Bastrop, well, we were first. We were supposed to be the capital. I don't know if y'all knew that. Bastrop was supposed to be the capital. And if you look at Bastrop compared to Giddings and Smithville and Elgin, and then you start looking at Round Rock and Buda and the other locations, we were first. We want a better economy for our city, and I think that projects like these will bring that to us, and it's our job to make sure that they're done in a way that does not negatively impact you guys. So thank you for coming out.
Cynthia?
Chairperson Moore, I just want clarification or question. Before we consider anything or to make a recommendation for the concept, we are agreeing to make an amendment to go from residential to industrial on the comprehensive plan. Is that correct?
We're not taking up the comprehensive plan at this time. Am I correct in that? We're only going to make a recommendation to the council regarding this the concept plan.
Yes, we do have the transportation plan, and we were intended to have the comprehensive plan on this agenda. The wording was incorrect on the agenda, so we can't talk about the future land use at this meeting. We can at a later date. But those two plans, it's probably better that we don't change them until this development agreement is finalized, because that means those are still in place. If this falls apart, we haven't changed anything. It still goes to that rural residential, and we can change our legal obligations is to change that before the property is zoned. So,
thank you. Matt?
Again, thank you everyone for coming out. We've heard a lot of what you had to say, as Cheryl, I think, quite nicely said. From kind of a personal standpoint, a lot like you guys, we get notified pretty quickly of these meetings too. We haven't sat in on the development meetings on this. I know that a lot of it's new to us. I can speak to having a little bit about the developer, who I have no idea who he is or what he's done in the past, but I have dealt with a lot of developers from this dais. We've dealt with a lot of big projects, and I can guarantee you almost without fail, at some point prior to these meetings, I get a phone call, because I'm out there, we're all out there, and you get people inviting you to dinner, you get invited trying to take you and obviously push your opinion one way or the other. There's been none of that from this group of people. Like I said, I had no idea this was coming before us. And so, again, I can't speak to specifically past projects that they've done, but I know from just that alone that they have decided to let this community and this board make a decision about whether this is good for Bastrop or not. And that speaks to me about the kind of people that are willing to work with an area, work with the city. We heard Trey Job speak earlier just about, you know, a lot of the ideas behind the fencing and a perimeter road and transportation. These are ideas that the city's working with the developer on. You know, certainly they're not finalized, but we heard him mention it several times about this perimeter road and trying to move traffic out of the neighborhoods and free the area up. And I get that, you know, the city's moving closer into county land that a lot of people didn't quite want there. And it's unfortunate, but I can promise you this area will develop, and the city can oversee it to develop in a far better way than if this stays in the ETJ. We heard talk about drainage. The city will be absolutely 100% on top of the oversight to make sure the drainage works as well as it can, alleviating a lot of the problems in the area. And you know, I realize a lot of people live out of the city by choice, but you do live close to a city for a reason as well. And having the city as a neighbor is not a bad thing. You know, they can't take land forcibly. The state has said that. You know, it's a vote for anybody else. They have to vote to come into the city. And so no one's taking anyone's land at this, but I can promise you this could develop a whole lot differently, and we've got a developer who seems willing to work with the area, try to do things the right way, and do something for the area that, I get it, the uncertainty is part of the problem of this. No one quite knows. Yeah, there's a bit of uncertainty there, but great things can be created too, and we've got people of quality that seem like they're willing to make that happen.
Thank you. And I'd like to echo what Cheryl said. Thank you for coming out, and I hope you come out again early and often for things that you're for. A lot of times we get people here to speak against things. Quite often we don't have people speaking for things. And government only works if people work it. We get the kind of government we deserve, and decisions are made by those that show up. So once again, this is just a recommendation. What we'll be voting on is a recommendation to the City Council regarding this concept plan. This is not a final decision. I can guarantee you that the developer has been listening, has been taking notes. There are a lot of questions that we just don't have answers to at the moment because they're still working with them on developing things. So, not now, please, sir. So at this time, the hearing is closed. All the commissioners have spoken. I will now entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve item 3A, to approve the Bastrop 552 Development Agreement Concept Plan for Bastrop.
Motion, is there a second?
A second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Cheryl Lee,
Aye.
Pablo Cerna,
Aye.
Debbie Moore,
Yes.
Cynthia Meyer,
No.
Matt Lassen,
Yes.
Ishmael Harris.
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you. It'll be heard again at the City Council. Please come. Thank you. Three C will not be considered tonight. We'll be set at a further date. They've been withdrawn. So we're moving to
Hey,
item
can we have
4.
some quiet?
We're going to adjourn.
We adjourn? Okay.
Huh? Would you please clear the room or have a seat? Or hold your conversations outside? Ladies and gentlemen, including the development, everyone, please take your seats or hold your conversations outside. We will not. I'm asking you, please, it's been a long evening. You give me 30 seconds and we'll be out of here. Thank you. Items 3B and 3C will not be considered tonight. Am I correct?
Well, 3B is posted correctly, so you can motion to postpone or the item.
I would think we should postpone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make a motion, we postpone 3B.
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 3C will be considered at a later date.
Yes,
Correct?
and we will re-notify both of those items in compliance with our codes.
Okay. Item 4, adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
We're out of here. Thank you.